Join me as I repot, rehab, and attempt to propagate my fiddle leaf fig tree. Some of you were on the journey with me when I took my fiddle leaf fig, which is a couple years old, and chopped it. You can see here where I chopped it, and in an attempt to get branching. I also used cakey cloning paste. I showed how to use that, and that was almost 2 years ago. As you can see, the branching has fully worked. At the time I had chopped it because it was getting too tall for my patio, and it is now once again too tall for my patio. But that's not why I'm doing this video. I'm also doing this video because it's been really hot and it is not looking its best. I mean, it looks okay. It's better than most fiddle leaf figs, but let me show you, let me go into more detail. Up at the top, this tree actually looks pretty great. Here is more detail. You can see where I chopped it, and it produced several branches after getting chopped, and also using cakey cloning paste. So some of those branches where I used cakey cloning paste, this is one of them. It's got 1, 2, 3, 4 branches. If you're wondering what this is, I'm attempting to propagate this branch, which I will go into more detail later. We can check on that. But I'm in coastal Southern California, and it's been hot. It's not as hot as other parts of the state and the country, but I came back from a vacation to find this tree is just not looking great. We have a lot of yellowing leaves. As you can see over here, we lost a lot of leaves, and yeah, I believe a lot of this is heat and sun damage. Even though it's in this covered patio, I moved it into this a little bit shadier spot. It was over here, which just, I don't know if you can see. I think it's like a little greenhouse effect took place on this tree. And I just realized, you know, it's time to clean this tree up. And since I purchased it, I have never repotted it. This is the pot it came in. And, you know, I always go by the philosophy of if it ain't broke, don't fix it. It always seemed okay until now. But the soil's kind of compact. And then this stuff, which appears to be perlite, it's actually styrofoam, which is not great. And as you can see, there's some little weedy plants growing in here. So it is time to repot this plant, because even the stem of this tree is a lot bigger than when I got it. I think it's just really ready to get in a new pot, get in some fresh soil, maybe, you know, get a really good cleanup. Really need to clean these leaves, possibly trim off some of these branches, maybe encourage some new branching lower on the tree, especially as it has, as you can see, lost a lot of leaves. So I think it'd be nice to encourage some new branches out of here. And I might move it back indoors because it is really a beautiful tree, and I have another fiddle leaf fig on my patio, which is pretty happy here. Also, I think had, you know, a little bit of damage due to the heat, but in general, I have a whole other video where I repotted this tree, and it's in a bigger pot than this one. Yeah, I think it's just really time to show some love to this tree and clean up a lot of the spider webs. So I could leave it out on the patio where it's been pretty happy but hot, or I might move it indoors in my house where I have these nice bright windows and make it more of a feature inside the house. So fiddle leaf figs do have a reputation of being a little bit fussy. I have found myself, my tips for a fiddle leaf fig are, it wants a lot of light, it likes to be relatively warm. These are trees that are native to Central and South America. Here in California, they grow just really great outside because they are not frost resistant plants. They're not deciduous trees. They're not supposed to lose these leaves. They are in the Ficus family, which is like the fig family, which includes rubber plants and figs. While some figs are deciduous, these are not. These aren't leaves that are gonna grow back every year. They really are warm weather plants. I was in Hawaii recently. They grow massive in Hawaii. I've also seen them really large grown outside in gardens here in California. So they can withstand some colder weather, but not frost, not snow. So if you're gonna have this outside, you really wanna be in a climate that is pretty warm. And as far as placement, you're gonna want it somewhere really pretty bright. That also comes with a little bit of a warning. Yes, really bright, but I got some sun damage here. So like all plants, yes, it wants really bright sunlight, but it can get sunburned if it's put in an area where maybe it's not used to really hot, bright sunlight. We had a heat wave, so I have it in this patio, which is kind of covered. The light is pretty bright, but it's a little bit filtered. It's not like harsh sunlight. But in the heat wave, it got light and heat that it just wasn't quite used to. So that's the thing with these plants. They don't like being moved around. They like to be somewhere where they're kept consistent, and find a spot that it likes and keep it there. Don't move it lots of places. That is really what kills these. I got this tree from Home Depot. It was pretty inexpensive. At the time, it was only about this tall. And it grew huge since then. And as mentioned, I cut it and grew lots of branches. A lot of times people buy these from Home Depot, Costco, those kind of places, and they have been in these immaculate greenhouse conditions. So when people bring them home, they're put into a dark inside room without enough light. They're overwatered. They are just treated differently to how they were treated in the greenhouse, and they fail and they'll just start dropping leaves. What is kind of cool is they can be rescued pretty easily. If they drop leaves, you can encourage more growth with rooting hormone, as I'll show you later in this video, or by trimming. That does encourage new branches and new growth. So you should kind of not repot these too frequently. They don't like change. The change is what really affects them, but since this one has gone several years without a repot, I'm going to upgrade it to a pot that is not that much bigger. As you can see, I'll lift this up if I can. So, as you can see, the pot is definitely bigger, but it's not too much bigger relative to the plant. If you put this in a huge pot, it might shock the roots a little bit. That's one thing to bear in mind when you are repotting a fiddle leaf fig and you want to upgrade your pot size. Just make sure it's only a little bit bigger circumference to your previous pot. So I have picked out for this tree, this is a kind of a plastic planter, really inexpensive from Target. It has a little bit of a false bottom there where water can pool up, which is great for, I mean, I've just spilled it here, of course, but you can also water, to do bottom watering, you can put water in there. It makes for pretty happy plants. So I'm going to move this tree out here for this repotting just so I have a little bit more room. But normally, if I was to move this tree to this hot, direct, sunny spot from previously been over here where it's a little bit more bright, but a little bit more sheltered, it would not fare very well. So really you just want to keep these trees consistent. And if you know you do want to move them somewhere, you know, maybe ease them in gradually. So this tree could eventually get used to being in the hot, direct sunlight, but I might want to ease it in. So if I was to say plant this tree in the ground or leave it in a place that's going to be here in this really bright sunlight, I would maybe put it in here for 30 minutes and then back an hour the next day. Just really get it used. It's almost like give it a base suntan, if that makes sense. Ease it in until it's used to its new location. And then similarly, if you're going to have a tree like this indoors and it has been in a really bright conditions, it could be worth investing in a grow light. They come in all shapes and sizes and they're relatively inexpensive, and they often can look like really nice floor lamps these days. There's a lot of brands making some really cool grow lights out there. So that is something to bear in mind if you want a beautiful tree like this inside your home in conditions that are less than favorable to these bright weather plants. So I'm just going to set this down here and get started with our repot. Okay, so I have got some of this Edna's Best indoor and outdoor potting soil. I've chosen this potting soil for a couple of reasons. One, organic potting soil is always the way to go. We should always be choosing potting soil that is going to use organic elements rather than fertilizers that are petroleum based. It's much better for the environment. It's better for your plants. This potting soil in particular, it doesn't, I'm not sponsored by this brand or anything. There's lots of great organic potting soils. I'm sure I can link them into this video. But one of the reasons I've chosen this one, it is indoor and outdoor. So that means it's great for potted plants. It's got a special blend. In this case, earthworm castings, kelp meal, bat guano, feather meal, natural wetting agent. And it's that wetting agent, I should say. So these are tropical plants. They're not desert plants. I have a lot of succulents in pots and in my garden, and with them I would use more of a cactus mix. But this is a tree that does want to have some moisture. It is much more of a tropical plant. It wants the heat, but it also wants the moisture and humidity. So I want a soil that is going to retain some moisture. As you can see, this soil is made up with a lot of things. I can see some bark in here. I bet there's some cocoa coir. There's also perlite. This is like puffed lava rock. That will help with drainage. So it's chunky, but it's also moisture retaining. And there's a lot of organic material in there that will help feed the plant, keep it moist for a long time so I don't have to constantly water it. But again, it is chunky, allowing for drainage, allowing for air to get to those roots. There's a lot of aspects to this soil that are perfect for this type of plant. I saw one tip when it comes to knowing how much potting soil to put into a pot is that you leave the pot in here and you add the soil all around. So let's try that. Of course, I've decided to do this on a really hot day. Hopefully this really bright sun won't affect this tree too much. But you guys will probably get to watch me make a huge mess. Maybe I'll do this first. The thing is with this pot is, as mentioned, it has a false bottom. So you want to make sure there's enough soil down the bottom, which it should have. A lot of times I would also add things to my soil such as bark or leca or perlite. I just don't happen to have that on hand. And I know this soil that I've bought is pretty good. Again, as mentioned, it looks like there's some really good perlite, pumice in here. So lots of good drainage material. So I'm not too stressed about using soil right out of the bag. And don't get me wrong, this is going to stress out this tree, and it could lose some more leaves after I do this. That's pretty normal. It's not great, but it is normal. So be prepared for that if you are going to repot your Fiddle Leaf Fig. And it's part of the reason I've avoided repotting it for several years, even though I know the soil the given soil wasn't great. But once it settles in, it should be pretty happy. And I'm also doing this, it's August right now, I'm doing this in the summertime. The last time I made a video with this particular Fiddle Leaf Fig, it was November. A few days after I made the video, we went on vacation and the tree was left in the patio over there. But there happened to be a heat wave, and the propagation that the stem propagation that I had done did not survive, and the tree itself got fairly sunburned as well. So luckily I'm doing this well. I know I can keep an eye on it for the next couple of weeks. No plans to go anywhere. It is warm, but I'm gonna keep it out of the direct sun and make sure it's getting the attention it deserves. Okay, so that's pretty filled in. Obviously this is a little bit taller than the tree itself, and once we put it in, it should fit a little bit better, but this is a good place to start. And now comes the attempt to get it out of this pot that it's called home for at least 4 years. So it's so dry, it just came straight out. So let's have a look. See, now look at that. Look how perfect that is. It's a little too tall, and I'll move some of the soil out of the way, but pretty good idea. But let's have a look at these roots while we're here. It is really root bound, and I don't want to mess with the roots too much because, again, this is a pretty sensitive plant, but I do want these roots to know they have more room to grow. And some of these roots are huge. I don't know if you can see this, but that is almost as thick as the tree branch itself, and you can even see some of the roots were popping up out of the pot, almost looking for more room. So it was definitely time to repot this plant. So it dropping leaves was its way of telling me, hey, help me. Yeah, let's just kind of gently massage these bottom roots. And they're, on the plus side, down here on the bottom, these roots are nice and white. That's a sign of a really good, healthy roots. There's no root rot. They're really nice and healthy, and they just need more room. And there's some even new roots sticking out here. I don't want to mess with these too much. I'm just going to mess a little bit with the bottom roots. Just encourage it to stretch out a bit. Okay, with all this discussion of heat, as I was filming, I'm using my phone, and my phone got too hot. So let's restart this. The phone has cooled down, and let's maybe cool this tree down as well. I'll bring it into view here because we were discussing the roots and how the roots of this tree were looking. So here's some really nice white roots. That's a good sign. There's also a new root here on the side that is trying to grow. These roots in here, it's really root bound, but it's not the worst root bound I've ever seen. So we're just going to very gently massage the bottom into the pot so that it knows to grow. Hopefully we can do this without cooking the tree and myself and my phone. And then it sounds like the neighbors are doing some kind of wood chopping or something. There's a huge engine sound going. So let's just get this over with. As I get deeper into this tree, I can feel that there's areas where I can really loosen up these roots. And I'm doing this with my fingers again to try and be a little bit gentle. I'm not, you know, I'm using some strength, but mostly just kind of massaging in and seeing where there's like really packed soil so that we can allow for a little bit better growth. There's no point in repotting a tree in nice fresh soil if the roots are just going to stay within the old confines of its previous pot. This is just going to stimulate it a bit. And as I get in, it's looser on the inside, so that's good. And I can also tell that on the plus side, and one of the reasons this tree isn't so, you know, dead or totally unhappy, the soil is like, it's not overly saturated, but there's definitely moisture content in it. I always try and make sure to not overwater my plants. That is the number one killer of so many plants, is overwatering. People think they need to water their plants every day or keep them really saturated, and they don't. So I don't know if you can see this. So this soil, there's moisture in it, but it's not wet. Some people use moisture meters. I don't know how really effective they are. They're pretty good at telling you if your plant is some moisture in it. I use the finger test. Does it feel wet? Now, obviously, up here at the top, this is very dry, and down here at the bottom, it's very wet. That's just gravity. So that's one reason people use sometimes chopsticks to push them down and feel the moisture content down there, or a moisture meter, which is like a needle or a long pen, almost like a knitting needle that goes down, and it can feel the moisture content, not just on the top, because the top is very dry. You could maybe think, oh, it needs to be watered, but it's not too bad. So when you're checking your plants, if you're able to stick your finger farther in, if it's like this and you can't stick your finger in, try a chopstick. If it comes out with a little bit of soil or moisture on it, then you're probably okay to water it. These are not plants that want to sit in wet soil. They want it to be sort of dry. And here's some roots. I'm kind of crunching them, maybe not doing the best job, but I just want to kind of encourage these roots to move outwards. In my previous repot of a fiddle leaf, I like completely removed all soil. I mean, it was like on its last legs. It was bought in the clearance bin at Home Depot, and it survived. It was actually pretty happy for a while. So you can do that. But in the case of this tree, because it's already stressed with the leaves getting the sunburn and dropping leaves, I don't want to overdo it. Okay, so now I'm pretty happy with how this tree is looking. I've massaged the roots out a bit, not completely, but a bit, and my soil is ready to go. This is some of the old soil. I'm putting it in here. And it's full of styrofoam, which, you know, people add things like perlite, styrofoam, vermiculite, pumice. It helps with aeration of your soil so that the soil isn't sticky and clay-like. It's good for plants like this. They need air in their roots, but not all aeration materials are created equal. And styrofoam, while it, certainly will do the job, we don't really want plastic in with our plants. We'd rather have a natural material and instead go with pumice or perlite. So the difference is, I believe these are pieces of pumice. They're in the good soil. They're little stones. They're naturally occurring volcanic stones full of air, so that moisture can enter them, they can retain water, but then they'll also dry out and let the air and the moisture move past the roots. Whereas styrofoam, I believe it's made out of petroleum. It's a petroleum-based product. It's not great for the air. It's not great for the environment. It doesn't retain water. Yeah, I guess it lets air through, but it's not a natural material. It doesn't, you know, hold water and let water flow through the way a natural material like pumice would. All right, this is good. Actually, I might want to bury it even further down because some of the roots here are on top, and I might want to add some, I think I want to add some more soil back on top of this plant. I'm almost certain I'm going to lose some leaves in this process, which is, yeah, it's a bummer because this tree doesn't grow its leaves back, but in the long run for the health of this plant, it's going to be so much better. Now, here we go. There's some more root massaging. That is all styrofoam. I just want to get rid of that altogether. I'm guessing that styrofoam must be a lot cheaper for these factory-like greenhouses that this tree came from. As mentioned, I did buy it from Home Depot, so it's not like from a local grower using care and attention for the plant. So their soils are just not usually the best. Okay, it's in. So I'm just looking at our temperatures. 85 degrees here right now, which is why my phone turned off, which is why this tree was not so happy outside when it's so used to our usual coastal California conditions, which is in the 70s. A bit of marine layer we usually get, but no, it's been just really hot and sunny lately. And there's another video I've been working on, which is about plants and heat and how to keep your plants alive as our cities and suburbs and as the world heats up, because the temperatures have just been getting greater and greater and greater. Okay, I ran out of this bag of soil, but I do have another one. We're almost there. Back with another type of soil to show you. Definitely not sponsored or tied to anyone brand. This is another organic brand with moisture retention because yes, these Fiddle Leaf Figs, they are tropical plants. They want to retain moisture. So we're gonna use that. I made a lovely hole in this bag already by accident. So we're gonna open it from the bottom, I should say. And just for fun, let's see how this soil looks. So there you go. Consistent with the other one. There's some pumice in there. It looks really nice, full of organic materials. The coco coir, it's like, I believe, made from coconut husks. And that retains moisture. So we're just gonna keep adding that all along here. Now, one thing I also want to make sure is I pulled out a lot of soil from the bottom of this plant, so I want to make sure there's no air pockets, because aeration good, air pockets bad. So I do want to make sure that there isn't like a giant hole, basically, under this tree where there's no soil. But so one other way to make sure that doesn't happen is we're going to water this. Even though the soil's sort of moist, water will help get the soil down. Another way to do that is by tapping the side of your pot. It helps get rid of any air pockets. And actually, as I did that, I could feel this tree kind of almost moved up a little bit. So that, I think that is a sign that the soil is moving around. So inside, in a good way. I've also added more soil up the top as well. And I know I kept this little weed in. I have a feeling that's a little flower. We'll keep it there for now. It's so tiny. All right. I'm really happy with how this is looking. And I've made a huge mess, but that's okay. We can just brush it away. All right, the tree has been repotted. I've moved it back into this more sheltered area, still really bright, but just not in this incredibly hot sun, which it's mid-80s. In the shade, I don't know what it is in the direct hot sunshine. Hotter. So anyways, I'm gonna leave this here. It's looking a little bit crooked, so I'm gonna try to straighten it up, and then I'm gonna go in depth with my branches here. I'm not gonna, I was tempted to just hack the top off of this tree. I'm not gonna do that now. I'm gonna let it settle into its new pot before I do that. But I am gonna rub down the leaves, and I'm gonna take a look at our branches, and I might even add a little bit of cakey cloning paste here, because I would love a branch to come out here. And yeah, there it is. There's our repot for now. So I straightened it up, and then I collected some rainwater this morning from my downspout. We're just gonna add that in here slowly. That will hopefully settle the soil down. And as you can see already, after doing that, the soil has moved down a bit. I'm gonna add a little bit more water. That wasn't a ton. That was just the start. We might add a little bit more soil now to the top, now that that moisture has moved the soil in deeper. There's a little more water. Let me get a little more soil for the top, especially these roots that are kind of sticking out the top. So our tree has been repotted. It's still looking filthy. The pot looks amazing. The tree's filthy. These trees need their leaves to be wiped down pretty consistently to help with photosynthesis. They're super light, hungry plants. As mentioned, they want it to be really bright, maybe not sunburn bright. So I'm gonna wipe this down. We have a lot of spiders who have taken up home in here. I'm not a huge fan of spiders, but I'm not too concerned. So I'm going to clean these leaves, dust them down. I have a damp dust cloth, and I'm just gonna wipe them. I'm gonna give them support in the back because they can break, they can crack. They're strong, but not that strong. Giving them support, try not to crack them further. I have some cracks in here. Even though they aren't looking the best, admittedly, I'm gonna make sure the dust is off there so they can photosynthesize and the plant can get lots of energy to grow in its new pot. Okay, so I wiped down all the leaves, and already this tree is looking 100 times better. Yes, these lower leaves have seen better days. I mean, that's not great. But these upper leaves are shiny, green, they're happy. So, I mean, perhaps that's it, that this tree has put a lot of its energy into these new leaves up here, and it's letting these old leaves go. And especially as I have noticed, the trunk is getting so much bigger than it used to be. So it could just be part of the tree maturity, but I think also a lot of it did have to do with sunburn, heat damage. So I am not overly concerned about that. So my repot and my cleanup of my Fiddle Leaf Fig is complete. I talked about how I am going to propagate this tree, and I realized that's probably great for a second video. So I have actually done all the steps to do the propagation. I will link to that video as well. But for now, I think this is a great place to end this video because it's gone on for very long, and hopefully this has been the ultimate guide to repotting and keeping your Fiddle Leaf Fig happy and healthy. Please feel free to put any questions that you have in the comments below. I love to reply to almost every comment that I get. And of course, don't forget, you can also find me on Instagram and TikTok, and subscribe.